replaying games of chance, what the NFL tells us about certain Terrianitis. Yeah. How infuriating. They got the call wrong. See that? They got the call wrong. That wasn't supposed to be the outcome, because that, yeah, that would seal Green Bay's fate. By the way, that's the end of that game, basically. That's tragic. Some of my NFL fans, you know this one, right? Saints. Interference. Remember this? There you go. This. Those that you don't know. In the NFL, the game of all games that you want to be in is the Super Bowl. This is the NFC Championship game. The winner of this game will go to the Super Bowl. Notice the Saints are ahead 20-17 against the Rams. Notice the 3rd and 7. Actually, this time is wrong here. Oh, watch this. Look at that. Missed interference. Missed interference. See that? That's not the big one. I get it. This is not the one this is not the famous one. This is the same game. So, in this instance, they're driving. They would have got a first down there. Interference is an automatic first down. It's a spot penalty. Yeah, let's just see this. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Holy moly, that wasn't interference. That was, well, I don't know if it's statutory, but it's approaching something statutory. I'm just going to say that I'm just thinking afterwards, these guys need to exchange numbers. There may be a connection there that's off the football field. I'm just saying it was very close. Very, 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 very close. Basically, he mugged him. He completely mugged him. But we're not done in this game. Yep. It was a hold. It was a hold and an interference. Oh my gosh, that's for those that don't know, that's Troy Aikman, former quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Won the Super Bowl, I think, 3 times with the Cowboys. In the course of 4 years, I think it was. In all 3 of their victories, they beat the Buffalo Bills. Oh, no, that's not true. The Bills lost the Super Bowl 4 times. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway. So, you know, he's a kind of a legend. He knows football, but that was not a hold. Maybe he was saying at least a hold. At the very least, yes. Even a hold would have been a 5 yards and an automatic first down. So let's do this again. Now it's the 4th quarter, and it's 3rd and 3, and now they're look where they're at. They're trying to go in for a touchdown here. That would be devastating to the Rams at this point. Oh wait, we're going the other way around. I'm sorry. It's the Saints on D, the Rams on O. I don't even remember this. All right. See, this is part of our dialectical charm here, folks. Sometimes we go in places we didn't plan on going. Oh, what was that? That's a 3rd and 3. Wait, this is not a pass. I don't even know about this play. What? Okay, so what they're saying then is, okay, no, this is the big play right here, I believe. This is the play. This is 3rd and 10. 3rd and 10. They're up 20-20. The Saints could score a touchdown. Ready? Are you ready? Oh. Oh boy. Holy moly, that was egregious. It was literally egregious. Holy moly. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Holy moly, that is so insane. Look at this. Way beforehand, wouldn't you say? Like that. That is a crime. So that's an injustice. Look at the Saints, man. They're heartbroken. There have literally been lawsuits. Saints, I'm going to put lawsuit. Lawsuit. Saints lawsuit. Saints lose lawsuit against them. Of course they did. They literally sued the NFL over that bad call. So then we get interference reviews. All right, we get interference reviews. Let's see what they said about this early on. This is okay. I listen to these guys regularly. Okay, I just call him Porn Stash. That's Porn Stash over there. I don't really like Porn Stash, by the way. He annoys the crap out of me. And he got off on a bad foot. And there's like this insider joke between these guys, but this guy is totally disrespectful to this guy. And well, that first time I saw him, he normally has Chris Sims on, and he's on Fridays. This Porn Stash guy. And this dude, what's your name? Why can't I remember your name? I like him. Yeah, I like him. He's kind of he's a little bit more chilled, kind of analytical, chill kind of delivery. This guy's just like shock and awe boy, and I like shock and awe boys at times. But yeah, he was like really mean to him. Anyway, this guy. Let's see what this guy says. This is from June 14th, 2019. So this is before the season began. Big Cat? He's just Big Cat. Sure, why not? Let's see what Big Cat says. So you can clearly see this dude is supporting this in the beginning. By the way, I will say I generally supported it. Generally, but I was a little bit wary of it. Well, I'll get to that. Let's get to Big Cat here. Let's just get to... Okay, I get it. You have opinions. I want to hear Big Cat's opinion now. Even though I don't like Big Cat, I still want to hear... Here we go. All right, let's see. Here we go. Big Cat. All right, there you go. That was Big Cat. You know, I mean, after all the stuff I said about you, you're on the side of right. I did telegraph it. I did. All right, now let's go to Al Riveron. Al Riveron. Fired. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I get him. Where is he? Okay, there he goes. Pat. All right, Pat. For some reason, I keep forgetting Pat McAfee's last name. So I'm just going to put Pat McAfee. Fire Al Riveron. Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Pat McAfee. All right, Pat McAfee. NFL refs. Come on, Pat. Don't tell me this.
People are saying Alberto Riveron needs to be canceled.
That's his name, Alberto.
Hasselbeck made a good point when we were talking to him, and then you reiterated in the first hour about how these guys are getting paid too much. So what's the...
Explain that a little bit more. The people that are good refs are taking gigs from television networks who are paying them, I would assume, a much more handsome amount of money for a lot less pressure. You can't blame...
I'll summarize this for you. What Pat is saying here is that NFL referees, the ones who are really, really good, they end up getting plucked by the broadcasters to do analysis for them during the games. So the NFL is losing their quality refs. That's the theory. But what I really wanted to focus on, Alberto Riveron. Okay, let's get. Yeah, I think I did spell it right. I don't know why you're not saying it, because Pat McAfee, fire Al Riveron. That's a thing. Pat McAfee has been saying he wants to fire Al Riveron. Let me just say, maybe Pat McAfee, NFL referees. I'll just pipe in that and let's see if we can get this. Yeah, Pat McAfee. NFL refs. Let's see. All right, let's see.
Who refuses to adapt to the new rules.
There you go.
There is one human who is in a position of power that sees a new rule and says, to hell with it. I'm not going to do it. Vontaze Burfict did the same exact thing, got suspended for a year. Why is Alberto Riveron not suspended for the rest of the year?
There you go.
Why is Alberto Riveron sitting in his little castle in New York with the hundreds of TVs around, who people have to call him? The refs on the field have zero say in anything. They call Alberto Riveron. He goes through the video. They call him back, like, go back. Yeah, that was a push-off on the Pittsburgh Steelers last night. Even though the entire internet, even though the commentators, even though that dud that's in the Monday Night Football booth, John Perry, who was an incredible referee, they all looked at the review and they said that was definitely not a push-off by the Pittsburgh Steelers. This should get overturned as a non-pass interference call. Mike Tomlin, good idea to challenge this. Alberto Riveron, though, goes, nah, we got to stick by it. We are not going to make the on-field officials look bad. You're not going to take a call that used to be a judgment call and make it a reviewable call. We are going to make this as difficult as possible for the NFL to overturn pass interference calls, which are, by the way, some of the biggest penalties in the game. The Baltimore Ravens back in the day with Joe Flacco, that was their entire offense for a while.
He's not wrong about that. So they had the injustice, and they're very upset about it. And because the just outcome didn't happen. Just didn't happen. I want to make sure that the just outcomes happen. So what Pat is talking about here is this interference review was implemented. And then Al Riveron, he's the guy in New York. He's the head referee he's the one who reviews these when they're called for review, these pass interference reviews. So now you can review a pass interference call. And the rule is that Al Riveron has explained is if you could see it in real time, I think was what he said at one point. My theory, though, coaches that Al Riveron. Now, oh well, let me just point out that I can't remember the exact number, but there may have been one or two at most. I think only one interference call that was challenged, that was turned over either for, whether they called it interference or called it non-interference. And that overwhelmingly, even calls that everybody else was like, yeah, that's pretty clearly pass interference. It's clearly impeding the person's ability to get the ball. Nope. And I've seen numerous of these calls like these, and it costs the coaches, because coaches have other things that they can challenge other than pass interference. They can challenge turnovers and scoring plays and receptions, I think. I'm not sure what else they can challenge, but I think those are the three. But they only get so many challenges. So if they use this challenge with pass interference and consistently they get shot down, they lose a challenge. So even the other areas that they had, they didn't get any extra challenges. So they lose a challenge, and they'll only have one more challenge. You get two challenges, and if you're right on both challenges, you get an extra one. But if you're wrong on one, you only have one more challenge now. So now, not only that, but you also lose a timeout if you lose a challenge. So the theory is that Al Riveron is just trying to stop the coaches from doing this. And I kind of don't blame him. But we'll get to that. So let's get back to where we began and just... yeah, let's just go and let's just enjoy all the wonderful... Oh, I went too far. All the wonderful plays that we've had. Let's just mute this. Don't want that. Just let this just kind of have some funs here and just do what it does and whatnot. So, yeah, we'll get up here a little bit this point, and then we'll have a little conversation there. So, what's going on here is people, when we have the technology in the NFL, like we never had, to monitor everything, track everything, figure out what happened, where it happened, and whatnots. And so, if we can figure all that out, shouldn't we try to make sure that we get it right? It's just that we get it right. And this is the outcry. This is where instant replay was born. Instant replay in the NFL is you can use instant replay. You can look at instant replay to determine if a call is right or wrong. And I have always been a strong proponent of instant replay until I would say I've been kind of sliding away from that for a while. And now I'm to the point now where, I don't support it at all. Except in possibly the only time I think you would want to use instant replay, maybe possibly, is the end of a game. No, not at all. I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why I'm talking about it on a dialectical. And that is, what has instant replay done to the NFL in terms of sport as an experience? And this is what the NFL is about. It's about the vicarious. Well, it's about a lot of things, but at its core, it's entertainment for us, first and foremost, and for the participants, it's a way to make a living. That's at the core for them and for us. But maybe the next level up, what is the core product? The core product is sport. And I'm not going to get into a long dissertation about what sport is, but I do have a long dissertation in my head. suffice to say, I'm just going to stick with sport for now. So it has a duty, I guess you could say, at its core to deliver this product that is sport. And one of the core elements of sport is to, I guess, the victory and the defeat of a devastating or a glorious moment. And in the NFL, especially now that they've added the pass interference to the range of instant replays that you can consider, you don't have that anymore. I noticed this a few weeks ago. I forget which play it was. It was an Eagles game, and there was a touchdown. And my immediate thought was, stop. Are there any flags? Now, I remember growing up, I didn't necessarily just think, are there any flags? But, well, the amount of flags we have in the NFL now has also dramatically increased. That's another story. But are there any flags? Well, that's actually going to be part of our conversation coming up here. And much more importantly, are there going to be instant replay reviews? And as soon as you see a play that it is not super obvious clear that the result is what the result is, you're going to get an instant replay. If it's one of the most important moments in a game, when someone scores or there's a turnover, instant replay is automatically triggered. Now, the booth they may not decide to do the instant replay. It's not automatic, and that only takes effect the last 2 minutes of the half and the game. So you don't fully get to enjoy only on the plays in which it's super clear. You don't get to fully enjoy what sport delivers to you, victory and defeat, without having to pay the price. It's a wonderful way for us to receive the biochemical rewards that human beings receive for such monumental victories without having to put in the work. It's tremendous service that sport provides for us, us vicarious sportsers, if you will. Tremendous. Makes us enjoy the biochemical reward of gladiators. It's wonderful. I mean, I love it. I'm a big time sportsers, guys. I love me my sports balls, especially the NFL. That's number one, especially the Philadelphia Eagles. That's my team. So I do love the sportsers. The NFL always been a reflection of its culture, of its society, and it certainly still is. What you see in America, for instance, in the culture is a push towards safety, a militant, I would argue, push towards safety. We have the technology, we have the means, we have the big brain scientists, the super duper sociologists, the women's studies gurus, whatever, that we now can figure it all out. We can see who did what and when and where, and we can make sure that the just outcome is going to happen. We can do instant replay now, like on everything, so to speak. Now that's only one factor. Trying to make sure that you can go back to review to make sure that you get the outcome that you believe is just. In the case of the NFL, when you say just outcome, the just outcome is the actual result of the play. It's pretty simple. when you move it over into the political sphere, that just outcome, it's highly subjective. And it's never really fully articulated outside of using words like justice and equality and fairness, whatever that means, whatever any of those words mean. I mean, they all have meanings, of course, but what they mean in the hearts, it's all a lot of variation, I'll just say. And a lot of people, I would say politicians, all politicians that use these words, they're using them as tools. They're no reflection of the heart. They're simply marketing devices. That's it. But what's happened in the NFL is, well, for a while the NFL was working on how do we make the game shorter. On average, an NFL game was about 3 hours 15 minutes to 3 hours 30 minutes, and you hoped it would be 3 hours, but it was hardly ever 3 hours. But it was hardly ever past 3.5 hours. Now, NFL games, they can be 4 hours with some degree of regularity. So now, I mean, what is, well, I'll say this form of sport, the NFL, like not all sport articulates different, I guess, human action, aspects of human action at an excellent level. And this sport, the NFL, one of the things that it, I guess, reflects is veracity. You know, frenzy, speed, and when you break up the plays so often with so many stoppages, it starts to lose that. You start to lose the plot. Even the players themselves, they have a harder time because they're not in the flow. You know, for NFL players, for any athlete that's doing the type of athletics, like, you know, maybe the most similar thing to NFL players maybe will be the MMA guys. It's I don't think it's a coincidence that there are more than a couple of NFL players who've gone on to already achieve at least some degree of success in MMA. So these folks, they operate, I guess, in a chaining kind of way, where they develop, like in MMA, if you have a certain flow going on, that's effective, you can really get in a groove and lay someone out pretty fast. And if you're in the NFL, and especially on offense, because optimally in defense you don't have as much time to develop this because you went 3 and outs. But on offense, you know, part of the job of the offense is more than just to score a touchdown. Part of the job of the offense is to keep the other offense off the field and allow their defense to rest, while at the same time they're punishing the defense. Because generally an offense, like if you have an offense that's going down the field, you know, 8, 9 play, 10 play drive for 80 yards, the offense is not going to be tired, because the offense is the one initiating action and the defense is responding. It's almost always responding. And responding, it takes a lot more effort. There's this period of pause that you have to compensate for someone else's sudden advantage. And so you have to really expend more energy than they do in that initial stage if you're even going to catch up with them. So the defense is always going to wear out faster than the offense. And I don't know how many times I've seen these drives where offenses are going 8, 9, 10 play drives. By the end, they'll always highlight. They're always looking for the defensive players with the hands on the hips and bent over a little. That's that. Especially, it's the front line that goes. By the way, it's not necessarily. You don't see necessarily the cornerbacks and the safeties getting tired. It's that front line that really more than anything is it's the front line and the linebackers that primarily are the ones getting tired, but especially that front line. And that front line is always the heart, soul of a defense. If you don't have a front line, you don't have a defense. So this is a huge advantage for offenses and always has been. But with this added element, you don't have that as much. You have offenses that, even if they have 8, 9, 10 yard plays, 8, 9, 10 play drives, 11, 12, 13 play drives, at the end of the day, they're not going to be wearing down defenses quite as much because there's all these flags. all these stoppages, all these reviews, all these instant replay reviews. Then there's the other aspect to the NFL. Now this one is, I kind of understand many parts of this, and that is the changes that the NFL has had to making in terms of safety for the players with the helmets. Helmet-to-helmet contact, leading with your helmet, because we understand a lot more about concussions, about just how you want to avoid as much as possible that type of injury. So they have new rules as far as that goes, which I'm actually okay with those rules. But still, this does come at a time when you already have these other added reasons to stop the game. Now you have more penalties that you can potentially call, and these are the types of penalties that are going to be thrown all the time. And early on, I don't know whether they'll get it, but early on, and them trying to find the standard of targeting has been a little bit hit and miss, but I think it's improving. But still, it's just another element. So for the sake of safety, we have to add this other element. And now we're slowing the game down more, or even more opportunities for people to have that victory and that defeat taken away from them. So they're not getting what they really want. And what they really want is I can tell you from personal experience, the victory reward that you get, the warrior's reward you get, it is most powerful when you are watching it, whether it's live or whether you don't know the outcome. Either way, when you're watching live or you don't know the outcome, to experience at that moment with the players on the field right after the play, the joy of this glorious moment. And that is taken away. So as they increase their push to assure they're on one hand, they're looking to improve safety, try to stop the players from getting hurt as much as possible. And then on the other hand, they want to make sure they get the just and right outcomes. And then to that end, just and right outcomes, whatever that means, they have also now, in the NFL, have instructed the officials this year, really watch those holding penalties. A holding penalty is when, on offensive especially is what you're talking about, offensive holding. When the front line, the offensive front line, these are the guys that protect the guy that throws the ball, the quarterback, from the other guys. The defensive front line, I'll say. I'll just leave it at that for now. So the defensive front line tries to get to the offensive front line, and the offensive front line grabs a hold of them, pulls them. You know, the only thing they can do is basically block them with their hands and just boop, boop. They can't put their hands in their faces. There's all kinds of rules. And in all honesty, everybody knows on every play there's almost always a holding play. And generally, the referees don't throw flags for holding penalties because, honestly, yeah, it's every play. And the general feeling is if you throw it on every play, it's really not going to cut down on it because it's just too difficult not to hold, even inadvertently. And in some instances, like, I don't know, I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's the general theory that you're just not going to cut down on holding. But the NFL says, nope, this year we're going to do it. We're going to try to cut down on holding in the interest of getting out the right play. And so they throw the penalties. But what happens in the interest of justice and fairness so far, the results have been a creation of even less certainty than they had before they started all this. And the initial product, the product itself, is no longer able to fundamentally deliver what it was designed to deliver. All right. And now I'm going to change focus. Now I want you to think about why the United States of America was formed. And it was basically formed because individuals had developed a habit of doing their own crap. And they had the means to say no when a bunch of other individuals says, hey, we don't want you doing your own crap anymore. We're gonna try to tell you a little bit. We're trying to mess with you and try to control you a little bit more. And then the American Revolution. And then afterwards, the individuals that wanted to do things their way, man, if you thought the British were bad taxers, Americans, they outdid them pretty quickly. And then the ones that actually did most of the fighting, they were the ones that were being taxed, and they didn't like it. And then the Americans did, well, I won't say the Americans, I'll say whatever you want to call it. They did, but more or less, with some exception, the wealthiest human beings that lived in this land and had the highest standing, most likely because of their family's lineage. The patricians got together and they figured out, I guess what they really were trying to figure out was the honey spot. They needed to have more power to be able to protect themselves against their looting of us. But at the same time, they understood the reality of power. And if they tried to do things too overtly, that, those farmers, they're pretty hardcore. And it's not like you can't use soft tyranny against them because you got no power over them. You can't cut off their water or freeze their bank account. There's no way for them to do that. So what are they going to do? So they write a constitution, and the constitution, for whatever it's worth, whatever you think it's born of or not born of, the constitution is basically On one hand, it's a compromise. On another hand, it's an opportunity for the patricians to claw back power. But one of the most fortunate things for us humans is that we have something called the Bill of Rights. Whatever the reason for the Bill of Rights, and I believe the reason for the Bill of Rights is they understood they had to let everybody know, hey, these things we're not going to mess with you on, because they knew those things, the reality was such that if they tried to do something in those areas, they would have been waxed. It's like, yo, man, we want it, we got to take their guns. Dude, we can't take their guns. We don't have oh, man, well, all right. You know what we'll do? We don't want them to know we don't have the power to do that. We'll make them think that we're being magnanimous. This is what they do. This is what a lot of people do even today. There's a lot of ideologies today that do this type of thing. This patronizing magnanimity where they declare that they won't do something to you that shouldn't even be thought of in the first place, shouldn't even be on the table, shouldn't even be a conversation. But be that as it may, it is our fortune. Now, I'm not saying that they got together and this is the conversation they had. No, I think the conversation they had was freedom, liberty, and all that, and they believed all that, but they're lying to themselves. Well, they weren't lying to themselves, I'll say. Maybe a couple of them were sophisticated enough to understand the BS they were slinging, but I think that what they were doing was they were essentially, and I've spoken on other dialecticals, that they were simply using an ideational shield, if you will, to conceal them from the fact that they did not have the power to do what gods should be able to do, which is whatever they want. And these people are all on the main, I will say, they were going down there's two paths you can go down to in life, my theory, Paul theory. One is to be like God, and the other is to be God. Your politicians are all be gods, and the coercive enterprise in general, that's fundamentally what it rewards. It's to be God. So the United States of America was born to deliver a product to the masses that they said, this is our contract. And everybody talks about the social contract. So this is our social contract. This is our product. Our product is in the fundamental areas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The government will not interfere with you so long as you are not directly interfering with others. This is the product. Of course, I want to say that the product was not offered to everyone. Some people were not offered a product. They were just given one. And the product was basically, hey, we own you. And by the way, we're still going to count you towards determining how many election guys people have. But when we count you as a human being in a population, you're only 3/5. So, yeah. There is that. But still, on the main, this does not take away from the fact that the country began as a product. And that product is, in the essentials of life, we will not interfere with you unless you're directly threatening others. And you directly threatening others, not people in your age group or people who own the same crap you own, like guns. Yeah, not that. No. No associative guilt in the land. That violates our basic life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that most assuredly violates liberty. Most assuredly. I'll be held accountable for me, not others. That's a fundamental principle. This is the product. And as we go along and we get a little bit more sophisticated, maybe we learn about concussions. You know, like I said, I'm actually for those rules. So I don't want to come across like I am totally against a consideration of safety or a consideration of justice, just outcomes, if you will. Because I'm for it. Uh, but I am not for the degree of justice and the degree of certainty that human beings imagine that we're even capable of executing. Just like the NFL. The NFL is going down a path which I don't think ultimately the NFL will. I think they'll end up pulling back from the brink, hopefully, because I do love me some footballs. But I think that the NFL is going down a path, if it keeps going, that eventually will no longer have. I mean, as of right now, the reason that the NFL is still in business is because there are still enough immediate victory and defeat biochemical rewards that we're still able to get, but we're getting them less and less and less. And the NFL is going to take that away more and more as less and less plays fall outside of the paradigm of the obvious. And we already have had obvious touchdowns reviewed for a minute or more, where we're looking at the replay and everybody's like, why the heck are they reviewing this? And yet, there they are. So it's creating a mindset amongst the officials that they want to make sure that they don't miss anything. So they're calling more penalties. It's creating a super cop type mentality amongst the NFL officials. And penalties are up. I don't know if it's 15%, somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact number, but it's more than 10% from last year. And last year's was already up from the year before that. It's just been increasing. Penalties are up. Replays are up. And in the end, with all of this extra attention, by the way, even as far as safety goes, by the way, I do, even as I said, I do want to make it clear, I do support the new rules about hitting with the helmet. I think that's an element of the sport that can be changed without sacrificing the essential core of what the sport is. I think, at least. So I would put that caveat out there. But in general, the efforts by the NFL to try to mitigate for safety haven't really had a super effect. Injuries have not significantly gone down since they've implemented any of these rules. I think, though, some of the things that they've implemented are good, especially the things that happen on the sidelines, like the protocols for concussions. So again, it's not like I'm not against some degrees of safety. Not like I'm against some degrees of trying to get it right. But I will tell you this, as far as the NFL is concerned, and it's a very simplistic version, obviously, of the United States of America, and the degree to which one pushes for safety and the right outcome, whatever that is. Well, first off, right outcomes. Trying to guarantee right outcomes, I'm fundamentally against. Just outcomes, I'm fundamentally against, because I would never want to put into the power of the state. The state has real guns that do real damage when they point at you. I would never want to put in the hands of the state the power to so fully define such things as just outcomes. I think the state's version of just outcomes might not be the same for everyone. Might be some people that disagree with that. And I wouldn't want to resort to a mobocracy. So the NFL, though, what the NFL has at its advantage to try to offset to a degree the messiness of trying to get the just outcomes, the right outcomes, and how it's actually undermining their very product, and it's making the product less and less about those impactful victory and defeat moments. It's more about waiting and looking at the replay. Now, and you can argue that, well, you still get it. You still get that joy or whatever you're calling your victory thing when you get the ruling on the field. It's not the same at all. I can tell you from personal experience, the level of amp that you get from the immediate, that you know is immediate, you don't have to worry about it, that is way better than, hold on, it's the replay. We're going to commercial. Oh, crap. And hopefully you're watching a version where it already happened and you just don't know the outcome, so you can fast forward over the commercials at least. But if not, you gotta sit there and listen to this bullcrap commercials. That's another rant I might do sometime soon. Commercials. So what they have is, I guess you could say they have some rule of law. Now, their rule of law is a bit arbitrary because it can change pretty easily. Well, not super easily, but they do have some. They are run in like they're a form of, I guess, oligarchic republic. No, I don't know if it would be oligarchy. They have two branches of government, three branches of government. They have the commissioner, the executive. They have the Senate would be the owners, and then the House would be the players. So they're even set up like the U.S. government. It's kind of interesting. So they do have their rule of law. And in the NFL, the interesting thing going on is no one in the NFL is calling for that to fundamentally change. They are talking basically about, these are still just tweaks. Nobody is talking fundamentally about changing the way the NFL is or the way the NFL governs what it is. That's another key point. So that's what makes me think that the NFL will find its level. It will eventually find its level. One, because it has to deliver the product that it promised. It has to deliver a victory or a defeat. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, especially people who support the Democrat Party, is that there are a lot more people than you realize, including amongst your own kind. Tons of Democrats. If they fully start to understand that the level of safety and just outcomes that you're guaranteeing can only come with the end of, basically the end of the Bill of Rights, that'd be really bad for them, because what they understand is that, and I think they do, I think most of us do at our core, if and when it ever comes to a time when we really have to come face to face with this hard choice, what we realize, we poors, is that if you take away the Bill of Rights, if you take away the rule of law that the NFL has, the rule of law that we have, then the poors are completely at the mercy of the governors. And the government is never going to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the United States government is not and never has been of the people, by the people, for the people. What the United States government has been is a political faction aware of the reality of power limitations that it has, in that the non-political faction have the means to counter their efforts to suppress them, to get them to accept less and less abilities to make decisions on their own. So the Democrats support things like hate speech laws. They support laws that penalize bad thoughts and bad expressions of bad thoughts, which is a fundamental, this pretty much guts the First Amendment. It guts the ability for individuals to speak freely. You are not protecting homosexuals by protecting them from hearing the word fag. You're just not. You know what would protect homosexuals when they hear the word fag? Is if, human beings around them spoke up when somebody said fag. I mean, if somebody says fag in a joke or the way that I'm saying it now, I don't care about. That word has no effect, and I don't think anybody should be allowing themselves to become slave to a dang word. This is the insanest thing that I've ever heard. Well, I'm being a bit hyperbolic. I've heard way insaner things than that, but still. That's what you're doing, and they want you to. They want you to stay captive to these words. So, to take or to place into the hands of the state the power to define deadly words and to declare death, metaphorical or otherwise, to the one just for merely speaking this word. And that's all you're doing. You're speaking this word. That's it. Unless you're doing something else. If you're cornering someone, and if for instance somebody yells out across the alley to someone passing by, "You fucking fag," I don't think anything should happen to them from the state. I think that if anybody wanted to clock them, go ahead. The state should leave you alone too. But no power to the state. No power to the state, because today it's the word fag. And then tomorrow there's a power change, a coup from within or whatever. And then it's no longer fag. Now everybody could say fag. Everybody could say nigger. Everybody could say fag, cunt, whatever. But you can't say Christians are bad. What we recognize is that fags are bad, and we recognize Christians are awesome. People who say bad things about Christians are fundamentally undermining the religion that is most important to this society's well-being. And it is traumatizing for other citizens to hear this garbage. And therefore, this is hate speech. The Hate Speech Act of 2049. Yeah, switches all the idiots. And that's why there's a lot of Democrats that are starting to turn. They're not jumping on over to Trumpville, because Trumpville offers them nothing. Well, actually, Trumpville does offer them some hope, but possibly. And basically, Trumpville is just not the DNC. And it's the DNC at its core that has thrown in with this ideology, SJWism. And SJWism is a political ideology that is aligned with, I don't want to say that it's nationalist, socialist, basically Nazism. That's what it is not, its nationalism is kind of still up for grabs, but there is a nationalistic fervor around the notion. If social justice could be a nation, then that's their nationalism. But there's a lot more to their particular. They have lists of Aryans and lists of Jews, and it's a coalition that they agree upon the terms. They like using these types of standards to be able to convict other human beings to death, is essentially what it does. But they just have different notions of, they don't all agree on all of the Aryans. They don't all agree on all of the Jews. Not that they use such terms, but that's essentially what they're talking about. But they do have varying, they also have varying, they have an Aryan hierarchy, I guess you can say. So you're Aryan, but then there's higher classes of Aryan. And there's not all agreement there as well. So that's still that still haven't coalesced around a central. My theory is they may end up introducing just the overall label of disenfranchised and try to create the notion of we are going to be the nation of the disenfranchised. I think that will eventually emerge if they survive that long. God willing, they won't. But that we're probably at most 3 or 4 years away from seeing something like that emerge, because they have a nationalistic fervor. They have a very socialist, nationalist kind of vibe going on, and the vibe is really centered around it is the land and the people that together express the grand God, the shared God. It's. And by the way, when I say God, I don't mean God in a religious sense. I mean God as in, I believe that what we are all born with is an impulse to exist. But human beings, I don't want to say that we're the only species, but we might be. Human beings are perhaps the only species that animals, organisms, generally varying degrees, they have impulses to exist. They try to survive. They try to get away, live, get food, whatever. They want to live, man. The other thing they want to do is they want to procreate. They seem to want to spread their genes, and they have even human beings throughout our history. There's evolutionary biology, evolutionary sociology that looks at human beings and sees how our biological evolution, our sociological evolution, that a lot of it is tied to the breeding. And then there's this one element that they don't really want. I don't know who's talking about. Maybe there are people talking about it. I'm just woefully ignorant. And that is, it is not simply an impulse to exist. Genetically, it's not just an impulse to exist physically, but there's another element, and that is to have existed, to exist, and to always exist. I believe this is an impulse that we have within us, that the body does not necessarily need us to satisfy a preference for us to get the reward of satisfying the preference. And what we want most all is the reward, the biochemical feedback that we get from a sense that we accomplish this thing that is especially, the more core it is to our preference, the more deeply, the more awesome feeling, that endorphins, whatever the heck it is, those chemicals that tell us that we love that outcome, that's what we're after. And we have an outcome that we need to experience, and it doesn't have to be real, and that outcome is that we are, and I'll say God, and I don't literally mean God. You don't have to think of yourself as God. It's I am, is, was, and always will be. I am legend. We all have this impulse within us, and as we go along, we quickly learn our limitations, and we adapt to, perhaps we pursue God, being God, not as an individual, because we're not billionaires. You almost have to be a billionaire. Very rarely, unless you're a billionaire. You almost have to be a billionaire to be able to sustain, for any significant period of time, a sense of being literally God. Well, not literally, the I am, is, was, to actually, to continuously get that type of biochemical reward, because somehow you've been able to fill yourself with enough construct, if you will, around you, high quality construct and control around you, to give you that illusion that you is, was, and always will be. So we pursue the vicarious. And this is what the SJW offers you. It offers you a vicarious pursuit of being God. And God is social harmony, a world where we're all just, well, not me, I'm not included. I could never be. I've already been told thousands of times by SJWs that I'm not allowed. I'm not invited. And even if I was allowed to be in the room, I would have to sit at the back. So they didn't really offer me a pursuit of being God. So I don't know. Not offering me anything. Of course, I'm not pursuing being God. At least I don't think I am. So the code, the standards that they're sharing with you, though, that you haven't fully figured out, is it changes jurisprudence fundamentally in America, and it destroys the Bill of Rights. It destroys rule of law entirely, and it creates a priestly class in the government that has the power to declare penalty based upon their interpretation alone of what they think is your intent. You're not going to be tried or whatever for outcomes. You're going to be tried and found guilty for intent. And the conditions upon which they determine who gets judged is going to be based on the level of Aryan and Jew that you are. That's fundamentally un-American. It's more Nazi than American. Not that America hasn't dallianced with fascism. It's dalliancing with it now with Trump. Because believe you me, folks, Donald J. Trump, if he ever had the ability to be an authoritarian fascist jackboot, to actually be one, I personally have little doubt that he would be. But he doesn't, and he never will. The Republicans are so far away from ever being able to muster enough power, or Donald Trump's coalition. The best that they can do is pretty much stop you, the SJWs that are currently running the DNC, the militant SJWs. And I do want to make it known that there are many aspects of this social justice concept, and many folks have kind of branched off into their own versions of social justice. And there's many versions of social justice. If you hear the word social justice, it'll be so hard to just not want to just smash him in the face because of the violence that name has caused in America. But there's tons of people out there, most people out there, they're not on board with this, what I'm describing. And unfortunately, they're still supporting it, and they won't believe you. They won't believe me that this is what is at the heart of social justice. And this is why we can't use social justice as any form of American governance. It should not be allowed. Constitutionally, it is illegal. I mean, it's not illegal for you to practice social justice standards consensually among yourselves. I mean, it would be illegal for you to use those standards in the courts to set that as your quote unquote new rule of law. That's not rule of law at all. That's a priestly class, an arbitrary priestly class that fundamentally destroys. I mean, it even makes it actually does. If you want America to be racist, do that. Make it about, you'll have two water fountains, pox and whites. Maybe it'll be more nuanced. Now, it'll actually, they won't have two water fountains. They'll have about 15,000, and they'll all be like gradations of scales. Like the Jews will have like a gradations of scales of shit fountains, and the Aryans will have gradations of scales of fountains that at least have clean water. But most of them will just get that. The very few will get the top of the line fountains. But what's interesting in the SJW world is you're not going to end up with the highest levels being pox or gays or trans. Although you poors, the backbone of the SJW movement, we poors, I'm part of you poors, you're not going to have the best fountains, although you think you will, because like the people right now who have better fountains, like they're looking down at the shit fountains, the ones that don't even have clean water, and they're thinking, I got it good. And the shit fountains are looking up at the clean water ones. They're like, yo, man, we want your fountains. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to you all, is, the billionaires who've been sponsoring all this SJW crap? And it's a very select number of billionaire families that fund, I don't know. I would wager, I don't know the exact, I would wager 60-70% of, and not just SJW, across the board, but 67% generally of, directly or indirectly, that wealth, that, or the money that goes to all of the different NGOs out there, if you will, special interest, nonprofit, political activist kind of groups, and all the special studies and the colleges and universities. You know who gives them that money? Mostly it's billionaires, and it's not just American billionaires, by the way. We in America have thought it wise to allow foreign billionaires to also invest billions of dollars into the social programs that they support, because why not? Yeah, it's more than just money, and it's more than just politics that has taken over. Or it's more than it's more than just politics that money has taken over. Money has taken over your social beliefs. Most of what you believe on the main is because you have been spoon-fed the outrages that you should feel. So what the SJW promises is what the NFL is promising, is safety and just outcomes. And we have the technology and we have the means to assure that all individuals, nobody leads with their helmet. But unlike the NFL, the whole nobody leads with their helmet, we're never ever going to clearly define for you what a helmet is, and we're never even going to tell you what leads is, and when we say nobody, we're going to make exceptions whenever we want. So unlike the NFL, the SJW doesn't even offer anything remotely close to a consistent expectation of a just outcome, because the SJW will consistently refuse to even define what the just outcome is, other than equality and justice and diversity. Oh, and stamp out whiteness and the patriarchy and Christianity and Americanism and patriotism. All of the things essential to holding an the Americanism and patriotism, those part essential to keeping the American state together, keeping people united that would actually want there to be an American state in the first place. So I think as more and more people come to understand the cost of this safety and justice, just like the fans of the NFL. The fans of the NFL, I think they're going to have to come to a holy Jesus moment where they say, listen, it is better for us to see an unjust outcome than to see our game turned into commercials and waiting, false celebrations, false defeats, uncertainty. The product that we wanted was the victory by a chemical feedback reward, the defeat by a chemical feedback reward. And yeah, there is a reward in experiencing defeat. It can be purgative. It's a wonderful experience to have to go through defeat, and defeat really does help. It can make you weaker and kill you, but it can also, more often than not, it can actually strengthen you. So you get to get that strength and that build up without having to get your head crushed like these guys are doing for us. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. I'm glad you're paid billions. You're worth it. Totally worth it to me. So, yeah, subjectively. I am hoping and praying and believing that that's what's going to happen. And I'm hoping that what we see is not a total knee-jerk rage, revenge reaction from the new victors if they are able to vanquish the SJWs, whoever they are. And hopefully if it happens, and I hope it will, it's a coalition of folks, not just a small group like heaven help us if it's the core Trumpians that are ones that win, because that outcome in terms of what you'll have resembling America at the end is, I think, at least probably as bad as what you would see from an SJW America. A Trump America is not a good thing, but we don't have Trump America. We have, even for Donald Trump, his coalition is not Trumpians. It's a coalition. Trumpians are a small part of the coalition. Most of his coalition, I can assure you, is just more and more people that have come to realize the cost of signing up for this SJW ideology. If you want to do SJW amongst yourselves, that's fine. If you want to preach SJW and try to convince others to intersectionally define the universe and think about people in terms of only 4 or 5 major factions, who you slept with, or who do you sleep with? What's the color of your skin? What's your American status? Show me your bank account, and do your giblets match your face? I mean, that's it. That's all we are. That is the SJW's definition of a human being, and that's all that we should be focused on. And more people are beginning to realize that that's stupid. That's just dumb. That's a dumb way to look at human beings. We're way more sophisticated than that. There's way more factors at play as far as human beings and their relation to others. And never mind if you really think about trying to go down a path. What kind of especially if you begin to put guns behind your actions, it's like, what happens when you merge Christianity with the state? People die. But I am still a Christian, and I support Christians living their Christian lives consensually and not imposing their values and their practices on others, and not insisting that others who don't follow the way. I mean, I can say, I mean, it's one thing for me to say, I don't think that you'll be in heaven when you die. You may go to hell. It's another thing for me to say in here and now, dude, you're so much, I'm so good. I'm so good, and you're so evil. Not only am I so good and you're so evil, but your evil is indecent. And if you don't see that you're evil, then that's hate speech. I mean, imagine if SJW was wrapped around, instead of, I mean, at its core, what SJW is wrapped around is the human being having complete power and control to overcome nature, to design the world completely anew as the human being sees fit. That's what is at the core of the SJW. And that pursuit amongst yourselves, without government guns, and when I say without government guns, if you have a large control over a market, I'm not talking about the mom and pop Christian bakery. I'm talking about Walmart, not Bob's local store. I'm talking about Walmart. When you have, and I would even apply that to a local monopoly standard. You have something of that monopoly size, and you choose to use that to exact your morality upon your customers, you're a fascist, and the government should treat you like a terrorist and drone strike you out of existence. That may be a bit strong. Maybe not that. Maybe at least start with finding you and work their way up. I don't know. But that's what you want. You want the soft tyranny, and you fully plan on moving to hard tyranny. And more people are figuring it out. And I have no doubt. I have no doubt whatsoever. 2 years ago, I thought all this, and I thought, Paul, you're nuts. 2 years ago, I thought this was going to get, I won't say exactly like you see it, but mostly. And as I thought it, I saw, Paul, you're nuts. I don't think I'm nuts anymore. So the SJW is the certainitarian that believes that we have the technology and the science and the power to make a perfect human. But they're doing it within a vehicle whose social contract is not, we will deliver to you death or glory, depending on whether you fit into our ever-shrinking definition of the allowable human. That's the SJW at their core. Fascists, true through and through. They're not leftists. This is not a leftist ideology. The SJW is a right-wing ideology, an extreme authoritarian right-wing ideology, and more Democrats are starting to realize this. You need to take back your party. You need to root out any, and at this point, you can't take any chances. Anyone who has ever said intersectional, that's a politician in the Democratic Party, has any power in the Democratic Party, they got to be gone. Now, if you've spoken out against racism, everybody should still do that. I think we can all say that we still want to end a lot of our, like, they call them sociocultural constructs. I don't like that term at all. I prefer calling them heuristic institutions. But these heuristic institutions, we still got to work them out. We still got to do some stuff to undo the years and years of racism that many of us have lived in. So none of us, I don't think there's many of us that don't think we still got tons of work to do to work this crap out, but we're not going to do it by writing into our market standards and our market standards, except, I mean, well, I'll say not at the smallest scale. I don't care about what you do in a place where people have tons of options to tell you to fuck off. But outside of that, if I can't tell you to fuck off reasonably, then you can't use your market advantage to force your morality upon me, because that's what you're doing. That's an act of coercion to me. That's violence. That is an act of terrorism. It should be considered. You want to pass hate speech laws against companies, do that. I'm for that. Hate speech laws against companies that practice. Well, I'm just kidding. I don't really want those laws. I don't want any hate speech laws. I'm just being facetious. So I'll just end that. And more people are beginning to realize that the SJW wants to change the product. At first, for most of us, and I dalliance with, you got to give these SJWs a chance, because there's a lot of stuff I agree with. A lot of stuff. You got to give them a chance. Because, decency and equality and all that. And then as you start to work out the way that they go about adjudicating for this, of settling the wrong, so to speak, you start to realize then, these standards, these new standards that you're introducing to the world, that you've now forced upon, well, you didn't force upon our market. Yeah, you did. The billionaire families decided to go along with this. And believe you me, when you have MasterCard backing up SJWs, when you have YouTube, Google backing up, more than just backing up SJWs, aggressively promoting SJWism. These are billionaires that have made these decisions. Why would billionaires make a decision to promote something that really was going to create equality and justice? Are you kidding me? They're building walls between you and us, and they're using the SJWs to do it. And more people are starting to understand we don't need the militant SJW to end racism and bigotry in America, and we damn well need the Bill of Rights to end racism and bigotry in America. We damn well need the Bill of Rights to assure that billionaires don't continue to control more and more parts of our lives, giving us less and less choices in the market and in ideas and in everything you can imagine. And the SJW is on the side of the 0.001%. They're not even on the side of the 1%ers. The 1%ers aren't in this club. This is a 0.001%, whatever it is. Significantly less than 1%. The SJW does not serve the 99%. They serve the billionaires. Plain and simple. And the billionaires would very much love it if they could knock out the Bill of Rights. That's their heart and soul. That's always been the goal. They didn't invent SJWism, but they recognized the power. Christianity was one of those things too at one point. The billionaires recognized the power of Christianity as a controlling tool. If you turn Christianity from a voluntary, or not a voluntary, I like saying consensual, I prefer that word, a consensual exchange to a government edict, then suddenly Christianity goes from a religion that really does resonate with the oppressed and help the oppressed and the poor, like govern together, live together, take care of one another, love one another, live their own grand journey, a grand journey where they are all directly and vicariously pursuing being like God and not becoming God. And because they are not assuming that they can become God, they're not so interested in trying to use coercion to force others into their lives, because they don't need them. If you don't want to be with me, that's fine. I don't need you. I'm not trying to build a God narrative. I don't need to be invincible. I don't need to be all powerful. I just need to grow in my understanding of God, or if it's not literally God, my understanding of whatever it is you want to understand about yourself or relations or whatever worldview you have. God, Allah, whatever. For me, it's God. It could be non-God, whatever. The SJW, as a voluntary or as a consensual practice, is very different. Very different. You can. I wouldn't want to pass laws that prevent people from practicing whatever, they have their methodologies that they use to assess. Like they believe that white people should go through this process of trying to make up for the sins of the past, for their own sins, even the sins that they've committed that they just can't help. And if white people want to sign up for that and go through that program, who am I to say that that doesn't satisfy your preferences and that's the life you want to lead? I'm not going to question you. But when you try to tell everyone else that if you don't see the world that way, then that makes you someone that I can destroy, that's when the conversation changes, and that's what the SJW has done here. They're announcing. And the Democratic Party directly, all of their main Democratic leaders. I don't think Nancy Pelosi is on board with SJWs, but I think she doesn't have a significant power. They're supporting the squad. These ladies, they're the tip of the spear of the SJW new standards that they would like to carry over into our courts, and they've already carried over into our marketplaces. There's nothing democratic about SJWism. There's nothing that serves the individual. It only serves the billionaires because it gives the mechanisms that control the lethal force that they control. It gives them the ideational legitimacy, the soft power, if you will, of not having to worry if they use their force to go after someone because they liked a Facebook comment that was pro-trans or anti-trans. Never mind, like I said, Mr. and Mrs. SJW and unidentified SJW. Never mind that you can't really guarantee that the people who are defining the Aryans and the Jews, that's going to stay the same, because you could end up on the lists, as I suspect in the end you will. As I suspect that's what the billionaires will end up doing. But that part is still not sure about that part. I'm still looking into that. I think I'll end it there.